is Maria Barnes, in spite of the fact that the participant says that I'm Juan Soto. I am the chapter president of the Access Lunchtime Group, and I posted for you to peruse here, and you can go up to these here in the chat as well. Our up calendar. Today we're going to hear about Access and SharePoint. Next session on September 24th, we are actually going to have one of the Microsoft employees come to talk about the redistributable, I think I've got it finally. So I would love you to share that information with your friends and for us to get as big a turnout as possible. And then October and on are a little bit up in the air. If you have specific topics you would like to have covered, please go ahead and put those in the chat spot where you can record it on the main users group, or request topic rather, on the main AccessUserGroups.org site. It may be myself October talking about dashboards, or we may have someone else coming in October. I have somebody on themes wanting to talk, and then potentially someone else. The talk October is going to be by Mike Sullivan, and he's the engineering project lead for the Access Desktop Client Initiative. So I'm super excited about that. But without further ado here, I want to introduce today's presenter, who is Robin Hunt. And Robin is the founder and partner of ThinkData Solutions Incorporated. She teaches Excel, databases, and SharePoint. And her topic today is how to use Access. So, Robin, do you want to go ahead and try to do your share button? See if we can get you sharing.
Sure. All right, great. You should be able to see a SharePoint screen.
Yeah, so it looks
and
like,
I think you're going to monitor the chat for me. So again, if someone can't see or hear me, let me know. I am Robin Hunt, and I am co-founder and business partner at ThinkData Solutions. We are about 8.5 years old, but I am about 20 years into my data career. I absolutely love the Microsoft Office products. I think they're extremely powerful in what they can do. I always loved Excel, but my first true love really is almost Access databases. I love to teach Access databases, especially to data analytics professionals, because as you all know, Access really gives you every component of a software system. It has the table component, forms for data entry, the query and reporting, and the fact that it can touch almost any data source we can come up with that's even more valuable. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about SharePoint and Access is, one, sometimes when we're dealing with technical departments and IT people, they typically frown upon Access. I have understood why that would actually be. I always felt like if they had the knowledge that we had as experts on Access, they may have a different opinion. Talk about SharePoint, sometimes you get some pushback there. But Access databases being so flexible and being able to touch those different data points, when I discovered that I could create tables inside of SharePoint and link those back into an Access database, it immediately gave me the ability to expand the data to the users who needed that system. So SharePoint does a lot for us, and Access does a lot for us, and by leveraging both of their strong suits, that we can create some pretty powerful systems. So I found that because most people in their companies stay in their little Access databases and don't correlate the use of SharePoint, then it might be important to create content, which I'll share with you a little bit later how to access that. But primarily what I wanted to do is just take a regular example and show you how to leverage Office 365 and SharePoint. Okay, so I just have a standard SharePoint site here, and I'm using an E3 license to Office 365 for those of you who are familiar with Office 365. So just for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm also using Office 365 desktop apps, the latest, greatest Office 365 product. And I think probably the most equivalent would be Access 2019 for those of you who maybe have standalone licensing. However, I started this with 2016. It's not a function of this later version. I've been doing this for a while. So I don't know how many of you actually deploy databases in your environments for customers, but if you're only using a standard Access database, then their availability of that database is through their network and through their laptops, right? Sometimes we need to be able to see real live reporting, be able to see that through a browser. And I know that they created an Access web app. I really never got into that. I immediately went this route, again, to leverage the best of Access and the best of SharePoint. So for a class example today, I actually downloaded the Access database. I pulled that from the database template. I'm assuming as Access users, you likely know about those templates. And I can take this database and I can convert all of these tables to SharePoint. And when I do that, I then get the flexibility of using the database inside, but also using SharePoint when it makes sense to use SharePoint. So I've always not loved the reporting component of Access, the report writer itself. I mean, for some reports it's great, but when you want to do visualizations and things like that, then there's some benefits to using SharePoint and tools like Power BI. And I want to have more availability, I want to make it easier for people to work with it, give them some live access to their data. This is just another possible. I don't know if I can see like a show of hands or that, but I would be curious to know like how many of you actually use SharePoint today. If you would, I don't know if I can see the chat or not. Let's see. Yeah, let me go to chat.
Yeah,
so if you would, if you don't mind using the chat, let me know how many of you have used SharePoint.
did you find the chat, Robin?
I did.
Okay, good.
All right, good. So I see some of you've not tried it. Some of you. Awesome. Okay, so let me go back out of that chat there. And again, if you know how to use Access, it's not a big deal to learn how to do this. Again, it's just like anything else with Access. You have to practice it, and then you've got it mastered. I'm going to take this template here. I'm going to go ahead and close out. And I'm going to go to Access. So Access is just a standard table, right? I mean, it's a regular Access table. All the properties are set. I'll go ahead and close it. And so this example, of course, is empty. I want to push this into my SharePoint site. So I'm going to right-click the Assets table. Okay, I'm going to export it. And then you can see right on the top here is SharePoint list. So I think they've been building with SharePoint in mind. So So I'm going to go ahead and go there. My site. Go grab. Sorry, I thought I had that on my clipboard. Let me grab it again. SharePoint list. Go specify my site. And then when I click OK, it's going to start exporting that and creating a list inside that site. You can take existing databases that you already have active. You can easily write the next version. You can write it to store the table inside of SharePoint, giving it some live access. All right, let me go here to my browser where I'm already logged in. So I exported it to this site, and just FYI, if you have SharePoint, you can navigate to the site and copy. This is how I got that link from earlier. And then I'm going to go to my settings, and then I'll go to my site content. So inside a SharePoint site, everything we put in it goes into the site content. Scroll through here, and then I see this assets list. So I'm going to click that. So again, just depending on how familiar you are with SharePoint, there's two major components that people work with. It's the list, which are probably not used as much as documents. A lot of people, when you talk to them about SharePoint, think of simply just documents, but we found with our customers and even with our own work that it can just do so much more than just store documents, and starts with the power of these lists. I didn't mention this when it came up, but when I exported that asset, it also brought the corresponding contacts table with it because it saw that those tables were linked. So now I've got this assets list. You can see my column headers. And again, if that had been filled out, this list would have been populated when I came to it. All right, and let me show you what it builds for form inside of SharePoint. So let's say I have a user who doesn't need access, but they need to be able to enter information. Maybe they need to be able to do it from a mobile device, and they can use just a simple form. So I'll click New here. And then I get all of the same data attributes that I have inside my database. It even gives me a pre-built process. So again, if somebody needs to enter information and they don't need to remote into the server or go through their remote desktop or their VPN, they can actually just access the list from here. All right, so that shows you the form interpretation, but let me go up here to the site again, and I'm going to go to the list settings so you can see what it actually built from that export in Access. So again, I get a list of SharePoint, and it has information, and similar to what I see here. So let me go back over. Let me open this assets list. Just bear with me here as I get it set. Again, you see item, description. Now it does pull the old ID. Again, if you're doing this with a blank and no existing information, it's no big deal. But if you do have existing information, relate over for you as well. So I do believe that they Access to integrate with SharePoint and SharePoint to integrate back with Access. So let's go to this table here. Because now I have information in my SharePoint, I need to bring that list back down. and then my Access database here. And I'm going to go ahead and read the original assets. That's original. And every developer has different preferences for how they go about doing this. And I'm going to go to my external data, new data source. I'll choose from online services. And then again, I have SharePoint list. So I'll go ahead and grab that. And then I'm going to repaste that list there. I'll repaste that link to my site. I have the same common options, import or link. I'll go ahead and choose next. And then I see assets, so I'll go ahead and grab that there. And I can click OK. All right, because it linked them together, it brought them back down. So really, I should have also rename that. Again, I'm not too worried about it because this is a blank template database. All right, so now I have just a standard link. I'm assuming you know all things about linked databases and link to SQL Server, link to Oracle databases. I know that we leverage Access as a front end to those systems all the time to do the things that we need Access to do. That's not necessarily something that companies or organizations are going to invest in a lot of development on the front end, and Access is a suitable solution. And we're leveraging those capacities of those larger systems. So SharePoint can actually hold more data than just your Access database collectively. So we use links to leverage, and it's really no different than a source. Okay, there are capacity limits, and then there are things that you can work with the people who admin your SharePoint to increase those as well. All right, so let me go into the SharePoint list again. Navigating back to the thing, because again, if you don't have a ton of experience with working with SharePoint, it's good to see navigation. So I'm in the main part of my site. I'm going to go to my settings. I'll go to my site content. And I'll open up my assets list. All right, I'll go ahead and click New here. And I'm going to cheat. This is a category 2. It's in satisfactory condition. Okay, I'm going to hit my date first. We acquired it on the 5th. It was $5. Current $15. My location, choose location 2. So, I mean, again, it's reading all those drop downs. All right, great. And I'm assuming I've met all my requirements. That. So again, because SharePoint can be accessed from any browser, and we can fill this information out. We can even go to a SharePoint app on most mobile devices. There's a million ways to get data in here. When I go back, Access database, and I go into my asset, that information is already there. So it gives me not only the Access data entry capabilities, but it expands to give me more mobile capability. Again, not everybody's going to go build a mobile app for everything they ever wanted to work with. Nobody's going to always give every single solution the same budget or the same hours. So being able to take a database that's either exists already, create something as valuable as a front end that can be accessed on any device, I just think it's hard to put a value on that. Again, I hope you're starting to see, again, it's just using a table that's stored inside of SharePoint versus a table that's stored inside of Access. Okay, so I saw that chat pop open. So they're talking about removing not the SharePoint integration, or let me say this, I haven't seen the SharePoint integration. I know that there has long been talk about removing the Access web app. I don't know if you guys remember when they rolled out the ability to create web apps. I never was successful with building an Access web app. I just didn't spend a whole lot of time there. So there is the ability to create a web app. I know that is going away. I have not heard that the integration between SharePoint lists and Access going away. Thank you for that feedback. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this assets list. And again, anything that reads the assets forms, I don't have to redesign the forms because it automatically recognizes that assets table because I created it from itself. And that's having the name stay consistent, just like anything else in Access. If you keep that consistent naming, you can leverage. Okay. So I also want to show you the fact that if I have this information and I have users that are doing things with it through the form environment, a lot I can do with reports. So again, if I want to go read an Access report, I typically have to go Access to do that. So go double click this All Assets report here. And I have one customer right now that they do all of these all over the country. They have multiple sites, and they want to make sure that everybody in the organization knows the events that they're participating in. And so there's a lot of reporting. And how this is accomplished in the past is they have one person in marketing, and she would go PDF all the reports. She would email those PDFs out to everybody. So I'm going to go and export this out, the PDF here. And again, I'm going to go see if they'll let me put it here in my I didn't want to go to my SharePoint designer. Let me try that again. See if it'll let me get it here. All right, so I had pasted it all the way to the home page, but here I want to put this into documents. And I'm going to actually tell it that I don't want to open, because I'll go refresh it. It's called All Assets. Choose Publish. And this is definitely one of those areas where I might save export steps. What we did for her is we exported everything out to the Documents folder. We saved all the export steps. We created a macro that she just goes and clicks a button, and it runs all the saved exports. So it took something that took her a good bit of time to go open them up, export them all out. It's just reduced her to a single click. And she has real-time updated reports anytime she clicks the button. All right, so let me go back over here. I go to my content site. And then now in my document, I have my All Assets. Okay, so there's versioning. SharePoint, you can control the versioning settings, how long something stays, and how many major and minor versions. Let me just draw just a little bit here. You can see there, I'm going to hit those three little dots. Tells me when it was changed. Let's see a little preview of it. All right. So now let me go here to my Access database. And I'm going to go add sample 2. I'm going to choose location 1. And this was purchased for $20. It's worth $2. And required, I used control semicolon, by the way, to put that today's date in here. All right, so now I've added that. So it's now in my assets, and I just run that export again. Tells me that it's finished. Go back over here. And let me refresh. And now I can immediately see that I have my assets there. Okay, so that kind of gives you just like the I would say rough order of magnitude of what you can do. But again, I want to show you that sometimes we have lists in SharePoint that people are working with, and we need more reporting capability, or some maybe some of the data can be automated if we had a tool like Access. So I'm going to show you how to create a list in SharePoint, and then I'm going to show you how to bring that into Access. All right, so I'm going to go add an app. I'll do a custom list. Again, I have full permission, full reign over this particular site, so permissions do matter. By the way, when you get ready, if you get excited about this, you can control what people see in the Access database and what access they have using SharePoint as a permission tool versus just being siloed to server folder permissions. Let's see, experts. Create a list. I'm going to call it experts. Hit my three dots there and go to my settings. So by default, when we have lists in SharePoint, it automatically gives us a title field, which we can change the name of that title field to be more representative of something we like. It also gives us who modified, who created, when they did it, and when they modified it. So I know for years before I would use this as a utility, I would go in and create modified by, created date to modified date, and then put that information in. I could have to go read the username and stamp it in there. So by default, SharePoint lists have that, and when someone edits it, whether it's through the browser or through the Access database, it's reading who they are, and it's keeping that information for us. So to me, if you need that information, this is a critical time saver and an even better reason to use SharePoint list. All right, so let me go create a column. And let's see, I'm going to do expert first name. And I'm not following best practices here. I should have no spaces there. You can use all of the same types of options here that we would see in any type of data tool. You see things like requirements and enforce unique values, and then the total number of characters. And then I'll choose OK here on the bottom. Okay, I'll go ahead and create one more column here. And we'll do expert last name. I'll do OK. All right. Obviously, if you're on this user group, you have probably filled out some type of access list or built a database of some sort. So I won't spend time talking about the importance of data types. However, if you're unfamiliar with the appropriate data types and database, I would certainly encourage you to spend some time educating yourself on those particular concepts because they can help you in everything that you design. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do a quick edit here. Again, this is, we have Access databases we might convert to SharePoint, and then we have SharePoint lists that might need a little bit more that we want to bring down into Access. So I laugh and call myself the CEO and janitor. And then Maria Barnes. Ooh, I'm fired. Chapter president, Maria Barnes. Right, so now I can go ahead and exit that quick edit. All right, now let's bring this list into SharePoint. So I'm going to go here. This time, I'm going to go in and right to my SharePoint one, choose my SharePoint list. Already in here, I'll go ahead and choose next. I see what's already brought in. Now I'll go ahead and add my expert. Okay. And when I open it, I have my experts list. All right, let me go unhide those modified fields. So it gives me all those built-in SharePoint. I don't necessarily need them. I'm going to hide that compliance asset. Modified, created by, modified. And again, automatically, if I change that record, I'm getting that history there. I didn't have to create anything. It just comes to it by default. I definitely think there's some extreme value in that. Go ahead and save this here. And just to show you that it interacts just like any other object, table object, I can create, and then I can create a form from it. And then let me go here and add a new record. I'm just going to say amazing guy. I'll say Juan Soto. I think I spelled that right. All right, I'm just going to close it. Refresh. It is. I see it's automatically stamped again because I'm logged into my Access. It knows who I am. It knows that I sent that record up. Come back over here and look, he's already in there. All right, let me show you one last little thing. So export this to Excel. And it's going to give me this little query guy right here. So I'm going to go with that. This is actually going to show that I have a live connection, not only to my SharePoint site, to my Access database, it's going to also give me a live connection to an Excel file. All right, so let me enable that. Again, I'm logged in here, and we can call this experts. And let me go, let's see, so let me do a pivot table. And then let's see, I'll do title. I'll go ahead and do a count of the names. And then let's see here. Do a little pivot part. Actually, let me move this chart. It's on sheet. So super ugly, not a lot of time spent there. I'm gonna go and save this. And I'm gonna do this. Desktop, I'll eventually get there. All right, so I'm going to go back over to my experts content site. I'm going to go upload this file, because maybe this is something that's already linked in my Access database. You know, there's a million scenarios here. I'll bring this in. All right, I'm going to edit this page here. And look, this is really ugly. Okay. I'm going to do it up here. Let's see, I'm going to do app part. Let me add that part here. Oh, I got to find it. I got to find it. Here we go. So I'm going to bring in this little Access Web Access. I'm going to open the toolbox here. I'm going to call it the workbook that I want to display. Let's see my documents here. Chart. And I can even go as far as my name items, but I'm okay with what I got. Ooh, pretty. Sorry, let me save it. All right, so now let me go add. Okay. Annual Bishop. And then Excel here. Oops. That's never fun. All right, let me refresh. No, I don't know why it's not picking him up. Let's see, did I finish this record? No. Helps when you do that. Come on, give me a break. I should have built the refreshes into my file. Let's just see if I'm pulling up here. Ultimately, we should be able to run a refresh. It should pick up our expert and then refresh our file just like it would. Okay, so it did appear. Come back over here. Maybe that's what's happening to me here, but ultimately you should be able to hit that refresh and immediately pick in that next expert and then everything updates. You can also build in your refreshes file so that it knows to refresh your Excel file and your Excel connection. So it sort of gives you the idea, and I'm sorry that last little part there didn't work like I wanted to. I don't know if it's because I'm using Google Chrome or if I'm on public Wi-Fi, but I hope you get the idea and the concept of it there. Before I open it up for questions, which I hope you have plenty now, or at least you have your interest peaked, I do want to show you my LinkedIn Learning page. I am an author for LinkedIn, and I love, obviously, Excel and Access together, but I have a course here on integrating with Access. So if you want to go through a full step-by-step, I do have that course available for you, and I think Maria will share that link with you online. If you need access to that course, you need me to share it so that you can gain access to it for free, just let me know. There's all sorts of tools there. If you'd like a 30-day trial, I'm happy to accommodate that. But again, I went through so fast, I just thought I would let you know there is a course where I talk about taking it to space and moving it into SharePoint, and we get into more form design and some more reporting.
So Robin, can you go ahead and copy that link or URL there, into the chat? That would be probably the easiest.
Okay, great. Let me do that. And then Leo, I think I can go open that on my desktop. Again, I get that enable content because it is connected. Go to my table design tools there, and refresh. And so there he is. There he is. And then there he is. So I think I just was having some difficulties through maybe Google Chrome. Let me just do one last. I mean, ultimately, we want our users to be able to come in here and not have to deal with a bunch of, like, you know, understanding refreshes, right? This is actually, so once I've loaded it to SharePoint, it's disconnected from that desktop app, right? I mean, the desktop is going to work just the same because of the way that it's built, but let me open it in the desktop app here and just refresh it. Let's see if I hit refresh all, so we'll give me some love here and just do it all. Yeah. And then, okay, worth noting, and you probably know this already, but just humor me, the save button has like a little refresh icon on it. This lets me know that when I save it here, I'm saving it to SharePoint again, right? This lets me know file, whereas just the desktop Excel file is just where it's not saved, I have that little icon that looks like that. All right, now let me refresh. There we go. And again, we can make this a lot prettier and we can work with it, but this gives you, you know, conceptually an idea of expanding the capabilities of Access into SharePoint and expanding SharePoint with capability into Access. So either way, it can be a good solution. If I make tweaks to my Access database, I can then also put my database in the downloads. And then as long as a user, like, so we have a new user come on board, that user can be directed to download that file, and as long as they have the appropriate permissions in SharePoint, everybody's working off the freshest copy of the database. It doesn't matter where the database is, as long as they're logged in and that data is in SharePoint, it's going to interact with it through those permissions and through the internet. It does require that you have an internet connection, but I don't know what in these doesn't require that. So anyway, I really do hope that you guys enjoyed just a brief introduction on using Access and SharePoint together. Again, if you're interested in that course, it's available to you out there. If you're a LinkedIn Premium subscriber, there's no charge to that. And if you need a 30-day trial, that's available through the site. I really enjoyed being able to present to you today, and I know it was like high level and quick, but hopefully you guys got something from it. So I'll just open it up to questions at this point.
Thank you so much, Robin. I thought it was very, very interesting today. If you are wanting to ask questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you want to ask them out loud, feel free to do that too, but I've probably muted you or asked yourself, so you would have to unmute yourself in order to ask that out loud. And I wanted to say just something real quick about Microsoft removing the ability to connect Access to SharePoint. Dispel a little bit of myth about that. Again, my name is Maria Barnes, not Juan Soto, and in spite of the fact that the participant indicates that, Juan does spearhead all the Access users groups, but I am the chapter president of the lunchtime group. Apps MVP specific access area. So I usually do have, you know, current knowledge on these subjects. I think what you're probably referring to, Jonathan, is the Access Web Apps portion. Microsoft took that out of the online SQL Azure hosting a little over a year ago. And in the meantime, you continue to host those web apps on your individual point site. If you had a property-based SharePoint site, not one of their subscription sites. But I think they are phasing out that in higher versions of SharePoint. So if you were to open a new SharePoint 2019, you probably wouldn't be able to make use of Access Web Services on that. However, they are not going to be doing away with links to SharePoint lists back and forth at all. In fact, Microsoft is expanding the types of connections that, I don't know if you remember, some years ago, Microsoft took away the link database DBase file, which is pretty ancient database, and there was a huge outroar from the user base. And SharePoint is a very large user base. If they were to take that away, users would all, come up and say, no, 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 and they would put it right back. They're not going to do that. They're also adding some new connectors recently, like from Dynamics 365, from Salesforce, etc. So they're improving and adding new connectors, not taking any away. And if you do have a specific connector you're interested in, they do on the user voice, which I just posted a link to. They do listen to that, so feel free to do that. Other questions from anyone?
I also, just for those of you who might be interested in 30 days of free training, I posted that link out. And again, I try to post just tips, tricks, stuff on the blog. I never hesitate to answer questions. I appreciate the opportunity to just share ideas about expanding the use of Access databases. So thanks for asking me to join you today. And again, I hope you found it informative.
Thank you so much, Robin. We really appreciate it. If you joined us late, and there were a couple of you who did, please take a look at the AccessUserGroups.org website and the events calendar for upcoming free webinars. The lunchtime group is every last Tuesday of the month at 12 p.m. Central Time. We are going to have a guest speaker, Microsoft, at our next meeting. Mike Sullivan, who is the engineering project lead for the Access Desktop Client Initiative, is going to be our presenter, and he's going to present ACE distributable. So that should be really interesting. We do have a question here from Chuck, I believe your name was, about linking to SharePoint when there's lots of VBA code Access applications. You want to handle that, Robin?
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, what you're actually linking, linking the tables, right? As long as the coding, if your VBA coding is around your table design and putting information into your table, then when they interact with your solution, they're going to need to interact with the Access database. But once they've interacted with that database and that code is run to put data here and there, that data will load live to SharePoint. So that comes to making sure to communicate with your users where they should and shouldn't. So again, if there's a lot of forms that trigger code to run to make sure that code goes everywhere it's supposed to go, then definitely communicating that to the users themselves. Maybe not even just the reporting components get displayed in SharePoint, not any of the form controls. Again, it comes down to just assigning where you want them to be, but you're still able to leverage the reporting capability by shooting the data up to the list. So I would say you can still use the Access database. It comes down to communication. I definitely can see the merit of maybe you have a list in SharePoint that needs VBA coding to make sure that things go everywhere it needs to go. So definitely just think your whole process, but if you can work it out, I think you're going to get a lot of value from that. But the VBA code will not run in the browser. So just making sure you clearly communicate the expectation of where the data occurs, I think can be valuable. I hope that answers your question. Okay, good. Thank you for your question.
Any other questions from anyone?
Don't hesitate to, okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, don't hesitate to connect with me on LinkedIn so that you can ask me questions anytime you actually try to go actively do this and you want to be able to catch me and ask. Again, I get so many questions and reach out to LinkedIn. I never mind people that have set my sessions to link in with me, and just let me know when you link in that you attended this session today.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Robin. Today has been very informative. I think it'll be a great start for people. And they have a couple of resources to go to more about this topic. Without further ado, I think we'll go ahead and end today's meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.